We are going to focus on the spouse and common law of the student applicant,
Yeah.
and also the child or the children of the student applicant, that they can be dependent of the student applicant to come to Canada,
Of
right?
course, yeah.
And nowadays, more families also looking into to come to Canada,
Yeah.
where one of the person is studying, and then the spouse and common law come here to work, and maybe if they have children, they come here to study too. But can you explain more in details, especially like let's start with the spouse and common law first, like if they want to come here and work while the spouse and common law is studying in Canada, what they need to consider?
Okay. So when we say family, as you mentioned, we definitely consider a spouse or maybe a common law partner and students. Students could be generally elementary school, middle school to even end of high school. First, let's consider the spouse maybe.
Right.
For spousal applications, we prefer to have, if the couple is married, that is an easier type of application, because to prove the relationship, we just need a marriage license or marriage certificate. But if it's a common law, then a common law should be able to prove that they have been living in the same household for a year at least. And even though certain cases, yes, they do live in the same household for a year, sometimes it's hard to prove it.
Yeah.
Sometimes only one person's name is on the lease
Lease.
agreement, or maybe that person owns the house. And in that case, maybe it will be beneficial to have internet payment, for example, to complete, one person completes 1 month, the other person completes the other, and even maybe hydro, electric, water, whatever type of expenses there are for house. If you can show, joint ownership of the unit, and maybe that will be helpful for you to prove that you have been staying in the same unit for at least 1 year and you are in a genuine relationship. But even if you have these proofs, the officer should, still consider and should come up at the end that you are in a genuine relationship. To avoid this, generally it is easier if the partners are married. And of course, the partner, if the student goes to a public college, the partner can also receive a work permit, and that work permit will be full-time work permit. And this will start on the start date of the permit, and the status will continue until the expiration date of that permit. It is actually, of course, it is related to the student's permit, but once the partner receives that work permit, it is not that related anymore. So even the partner finishes the school, the spouse can work until the end of the expiration date of their permit. And regarding the child, actually children that do not need a study permit specifically to study at elementary school or high school, as long as one of the parents have some type of permit. That permit can be study permit, or that permit can be work permit. We generally like, once the student enters with a tourist visa, for them to apply for a study permit, just to be more legal and maybe not dependent on the mother's or father's study permit or work permit. And of course, if a parent is studying at a public college, then the public school of the child is generally tuition free, meaning exempt from paying the international tuition fees. The student is still considered international, but they are exempt from paying the tuition fees. So instead of paying $16,000 for your student's education, a parent can actually pay for their education $16,000, plus they will receive the work permit afterwards. So this can extend to a 5-year free education for the child. But as we mentioned before, the parent's purpose of study cannot be so that the child goes to the school for free. The parent has to genuinely need to study that program. So sometimes what we recommend to families is maybe first sign your child. Of course, you will be paying that international tuition fee, and you can accompany your child with a tourist visa. Once you're in Canada, you can maybe improve your English, and then if you decide to study, then upon improving your English levels, and if it's like a pathway program, then you can apply for a study permit within Canada with a letter of acceptance taken from a public college. And the next year, or maybe the next term, your student's education will be free, and that 5-year period, the potential 5-year period, will start. When it comes to spouse will receive a open work permit if all the conditions are met. That means spouse can work up to no, actually not up to. They can work
Full-time.
Full time. Yeah, there is no hour limit for them, and if one day the spouse wants to study, maybe after the student, let's say mother or the father, finishes their studies, receives the postgrad work permit, still going on with their immigration processes, and they want to lengthen their stay in Canada, then maybe the spouse can study this time. And of course, a work permit holder cannot study with that current work permit, but what they can do is they can change their conditions of their permit within Canada with a LOA and maybe half of the tuition fees paid, and then they can apply for a study permit in Canada and receive their study permit and start their academic program in Canada. And when this happens, then the initial student, now graduate, can apply for the work permit. So you can actually stay maybe even 5 plus 5 years. In order for your child to get a good education, at the same time sees a overseas country, even maybe becomes Canadian, both mentally and legally. Students, what we notice is, especially elementary school students, mentally they become Canadians super quick. It takes them 3 months to get used to Canada. Generally, parents struggle maybe a bit more than that.
That's
But
true.
students, their language, their friendships, they really find Canada as their home after 3-4 months, if they're lucky.
One quick question. If they are here on an open work permit and they want to study short courses as a spouse or common law or dependent, can they also do that?
Yes, definitely. Any program that is less than 6 months, which is language program, is one of them. They can study for a week, they can study for 3 weeks, they can study for 3 months, and I'm sure you can help them with it. Once they come to Canada, they can just start to a language course where the school is a boutique school, maybe not with many Thai students, because sometimes internationalization is also important, and exposure to English other than your own language. They can just start to a language program whenever they want.